good morning.
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How you doing?
I'm good. Hey, have you ever heard of what a doppelganger is?
Yes.
I've met yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who is it?
His name's Marcos Borges.
Huh. Can I Google him or will anything come up?
Look him up on Instagram.
Mark, author,
No,
nutrition.
no, he's a triathlete. His
Oh,
last name is Borges.
oh, there it is. Okay. Um, let's see. His page is loading. Uh, rock climber?
No,
No. Okay. Wrong Marcos Borges.
triathlete.
I'll keep looking. Because so far the two people I saw are way better looking than me, so that's nice. How are you doing today?
I just got up recently, so I'm doing all right so far. Got my
There it
coffee.
is.
Got my
There it is.
coffee.
I don't know. There you go.
So, man, tell me about Georgia bikes. It's one of those things that I've tried to, find ways for myself to get involved with making Georgia more bike friendly because I did get in an accident. I was hit. That's how I suffered my traumatic brain injury.
Yeah. Um, I did a little looking into your background, and I saw in one of your videos that you were hit by an SUV, and um, Georgia Bikes exists on a statewide level to improve bicycling for everyone in Georgia, whether they're on a road bike or a mountain bike or commuting or, a kid riding to school. We are also moving into walking and advocacy for people with disabilities as they get around. We do a little bit of transit work, but there are other groups that are responsible for transit advocacy and policy statewide. But our main focus is to make Georgia, a better place for everybody who walks and rides bikes. We are a very small organization. Right now, it's myself and a safety education programs manager, and that's Justin Bristol. And he does a lot of work on training people to either ride bikes more safely or to drive more safely, as they encounter people with bikes, people on bikes. He also offers a law enforcement training class that allows officers to add credits to their certification requirements. So it's a certified class, and the idea there is to train them on what to look out for as they see people driving, behaving in a way that would endanger the safety of somebody on a bike, and now again somebody walking. We've been around since 2006, and we have big plans. Again, we're expanding into walking, but I also have plans to expand the staff. So I'm hiring right now. Ideally, I'll have a position filled in the next couple of weeks as a planning manager to do direct outreach to communities locally and to work with the state government on policy. And then we're also hoping to expand our safety education programming to where we have more coverage statewide. And fingers crossed, that position will come through from a grant that we get with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. So that's Georgia Bikes in a nutshell. Any of that resonate or warrant follow-up or anything?
So are you more of a lobbying type group?
No, we're a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that works with advocates. We're advocates. We work with local advocates. We work with other statewide partners in advocacy. We do work with the General Assembly to get policies put in place that improve bicycling safety and convenience and things like that. We are not directly a lobbying group, though. I would consider us very high up on advocacy, very high up on safety, and then a little bit in the government relations area.
So in government relations, I used to work for the Department of Community Affairs. I don't know if
Oh,
you're
great. Yeah, I'm a planner. My background is in community planning. I was a planner for 20 years before I came to Georgia Bikes in September. So I know DCA very well.
Yeah, I work for their department, well, their building, their codes and industrialized buildings. So I was in charge of the
Okay.
building codes for Georgia.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was at my last position was at the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission for 14 and a half years, working very closely with DCA in the planning office. So the folks who implement the comprehensive planning regulations and regional planning regulations.
Yeah, I mean, it was a, it was an interesting job. It didn't pay well, I'll tell you that much.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I think that I was only getting like $45,000. I'm like, well, okay, but I get like 50 holidays.
that I mean, there are things in life, right, that are more important than a paycheck, and time off is one of them.
Oh my God! So when they told me that you get Confederate Memorial Day and Robert E. Lee's birthday off, I'm from Ohio. I said, "Wait, the losing side gets a Memorial Day." I didn't think it was real.
Yeah.
I thought it was a joke.
I'm from upstate New York myself, and in graduate school, I was at the University of Texas, and I worked part-time for the city of Austin, and they gave us the opportunity to choose which day off we were taking. It was the same day of the year, but it was up to us to decide whether we were observing MLK or Confederate Memorial Day.
Okay, instead of getting both, they give you one.
I think that was the case. That's my recollection from 21 years ago. I observed MLK myself.
So, making, if you want volunteers for your organization, I definitely have the free time because I am on disability.
Mm-hmm.
I do have the background working with places like TCA, and I do have a little bit of urban planning and urban design background from work.
Oh,
So
great.
I used to be an architect in my former life.
Okay.
So, and just because I'm on disability, kind of makes it I'm a unique situation where I have a lot of free time on my hands.
Yeah. Yeah, we are always looking for volunteers. Again, we're a really small organization. So help where we can get it is always appreciated.
So I mean, please do let me know what you need. And
Great. Thanks.
but yeah, I was definitely I was hit by a distracted driver. He will never admit to it. He said he was blinded by the LED traffic light,
Okay.
but I know you were just looking down at your phone
Right.
because he had a 2005 Tahoe, right? And it doesn't have, GPS in dash or anything. And he said when he hit me, he said, "I'm sorry, I'm lost. I don't know where I am." And just put two and two together. You were a distracted driver looking at your phone. He just would never admit to it because of poor stuff. And I mean, I forgive the guy. It's one of those things where you have to work on forgiveness to get to it. But it's a shame that there are people like that who are that distracted
Mhm.
by their phones.
When was your crash?
October 5th, 2017.
Wow. Yeah. We see that a lot. I live in Athens, and the amount of people who look like UGA students anyway, driving around like this with their eyes on their phone or the phone up here and driving around, one hand on the wheel, looking left and right, is astonishing. And I'm sure it's like that throughout the state, throughout the rest of the state. And it really concerns me. We fought hard this year with a strong coalition of other organizations to stop the erosion of part of our distracted driving law in Georgia, and we won. The bill was to allow people at red lights to be able to pick up their phone and hold it and be on their phone really in any way. And then when the light changes, you're expected to put it down and keep driving. Well, the problem is that you're not going to do that. You're going to hold that phone at the red light, and then you see the light change eventually because you probably didn't see it change in the first place. Somebody beeps at you and you step on the gas. And what if there's, a person in the crosswalk in front of you? What if there's a person on a bike in front of you? So we fought hard against that, and it failed on the floor, which is rare.
Especially in a state like ours where it's the Republican legislature.
Well, and this was from this bill originated from the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, who is actually my senator here in Athens, and I had a few conversations with him about it. And he felt strongly that he was trying to make people safer by saying, well, if they've got the phone in their hand at a red light, then they're not looking down, right? The phone is in their view, and everything else is in their view. Everybody else disagreed. Georgia Bikes, the state distracted driving task team disagreed. AARP, I think maybe Georgia Municipal Association, and so we were all kind of aligned against this bill, because it was clear to us that it was going to make people less safe.
I mean, whether it passed or not, I think it's, one of those things where people do that anyway,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's I need to do a count at some point, just sit in an intersection someday and see what it looks like in Athens. See how many people have the phone in their hands, how many people don't, because I think it would be pretty even numbers for and against.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, the more you see, more than one is, more than zero is a bad number, right? Because,
Mhm.
but there, whether you get to half or not, that's still a lot. But I mean, even I've been guilty of looking at my phone at a long light.
Mhm.
It's just one of those things that a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that Georgia Bikes does. We're unable to be, I think we're more successful when we're not a voice in the wilderness. So when we work with coalition, and right now, I see our job as aligning people who have the same interests, to work toward common goals. We can't do everything with two staff, right? It's really hard to do everything with two staff. So I see my primary job at this point as strengthening the organization internally and being able to work with our partners externally.
Yeah, that's that. So, what other coalitions are you working with nearby?
Yeah, we have a great coalition on the state level called the Georgia Outdoor Recreation and Trails Coalition. It stemmed out of some work that I actually helped kind of found, as part of a group, the Georgia Trail Summit and the Georgia Trails Alliance. And so that summit was put on for maybe like 6 or 7 years as the Georgia Trail Summit and then as the Georgia Trails Alliance, and we turned it over to the Trust for Public Land in Georgia, who have staff, who have full-time staff that can take care of these things. That coalition is working with partners from bicycling, hiking, walking, rock climbing, paddling, the outdoor industry, to lean on the state legislature again to make people safer, but also to invest more money in connected facilities for walking, biking, paddling, and everything else, and to try to create a statewide plan for trails first, and then hopefully the rest of the resources too.
What is it like trying to work with a conservative supermajority state legislature to try to actually make some progress? Because they're not really known for that kind of thing. It's not like working with a supermajority of liberals to where they're pretty open to what you do. How is that relationship like for you?
We have partners on both sides of the aisle, and I think messaging probably varies. I'm participating in the America Walks College for Georgia, and it's been a great program. And one of the things that I've always known, but I've kind of ignored over the years, is that the way you talk to somebody and the way you package something should be tailored to them rather than tailored to you, right? So when we work with our partners, whether they're on the blue side or the red side, we're trying to create a message that resonates with them. So one of our big supporters of trails statewide is the Republican chair of the House Natural Resources or Game and Wildlife or whatever it is committee, and he's from a small town in Georgia that has a big rail trail being developed at one end of it. And so he's acutely aware of the benefits that can come to his community, where his dad happens to be the mayor and his mom also happens to be on the city council, to create positive change in that community from safe bike ped infrastructure. We work closely, and this isn't on the state level, but we work closely with both senators' offices from Georgia. So Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff. The conversations are probably a little different sometimes, but they're always willing to help. They've always got resources that they're trying to connect us to at the federal level. And so I think that, like, from our standpoint, we exist in a political world, but we're not a political organization. We're an advocacy organization and an education organization.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping Senator Warnock wins re-election because he happens to be the better choice for people like your organization.
His staff have been incredibly helpful with us. As part of the National Bike Summit in DC in March, I got to meet with his transportation specialist in the Russell office building in DC, and it was one of those great meetings where, like, I didn't have to convince anyone of anything. They already knew what I was talking about. They already agreed, and they were happy to help. This individual has since taken a job at USDOT under Secretary Buttigieg, to be able to really focus in on transportation.
I really like that guy. Not only is he like, I call him a certified genius who speaks multiple languages, but he really gets to Secretary of Transportation position.
He exhibits a huge amount of empathy when he speaks. And to me, if you use that as a starting point, you're going to do well in making the world a better place. He spoke to us actually on screen at the bike summit. So he was like a keynote speaker on lobby day at the National Bike Summit. And again, he's one of those people who already gets it, who you don't have to convince. This is where I'm coming from. Here are the things that we're trying to do. They already know that, and they're already on the same page with you. So then they start talking about, okay, like, well, how can we get to this place where people are safer walking and biking? We just want them to be able to get home at the end of the day. We want them to show up alive and not in the hospital, right? And so it's really nice to have partners on that level, who care about this stuff, who are already convinced of why it's important, and who are working to make things better internally.
And I think, I mean, we can go all the way up to the top because, Joe Biden was literally riding a bike not too long ago, the one where he crashed. But I mean,
it happens.
That happens when you're not used to it and you're wearing toe clips. But
I remember those things.
Yeah, toe clips suck. I just have the cleats.
My friend brought his bike over yesterday so I could take a look at it and try to get it back in shape for him, and he had toe clips on it. And I thought back, like, when was the last time I rode toe clips? And it was probably, I'm gonna guess, 12, 15 years ago. And it felt horrible putting my feet inside those things just immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're more of a hazard than they are helpful.
I agree. I have some SPDs that I ride for commuting. When I was commuting, I work from home now. Ironically, I was riding my bike 15, 20 miles a day when I had a desk job. And now that I'm the statewide bike org director, I work from home and I don't bike commute anymore. But when I was commuting, I had SPDs. I've switched that bike, which is a gravel bike, over to platform pedals with the the beefy screws in them. And I'm happier for it. Everything's more comfortable. I don't think I lost a lot of efficiency, and I feel safer too.
Yeah, when I got hit, I was bike commuting. I've done bike commuting till at least 3 or 4 of my jobs since I decided to get into triathlons. And like when I was going from Vinings to Decatur, so that's 30 miles round trip.
Wow.
And then I was going from Vinings to Sandy Springs too the one time. So that's, that was 28 miles round trip.
That is longer than any bike commute I have ever had.
Well, you know what? I did it because I needed the off-season miles, right? And it's like it was
Oh,
great
sure.
because there was a lot of hills. I'm like, all right, we can do this. And then,
Yeah.
but I actually don't ride outside that much very anymore.
I imagine. What kind of bike were you riding? Was it a road like a road racing bike or a more commuting bike?
It was just a regular road bike, nothing special. It was like $1,500.
But like skinny tires and all that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I tried commuting on one of those for about a week, and I as fast as I felt and as easy as it was to make it up that last half-mile hill that was part of my commute at the end of every morning, the potholes and the gravel on the road and everything else just made it, I ditched it and went back to my regular commuter bike.
There's always got to be a hill at the end.
There's always got to be a hill at the end. It was one of those commutes that was like, you know, I started off on a flat and then I went down a big hill and then I went up a big hill. So at the beginning of the day, it finishes with a hill. And at the end of the day, I still have to go back up the other hill before I get home anyway. And that's Athens, right? Like Athens is just a hilly place and it's fine. I miss bike commuting a lot. The daily bike ride was a chance to kind of prep the brain before the day, and then at the end of the day just kind of wash it out from everything that had happened. The bike is for me anyway, like it's always been part of my life. I was on my bike in the neighborhood at 2.5 3 years old with my cousins and no parents, and it was an independence thing, and then it was a recreation thing, and then it was an exercise thing, and then it was a commuting thing. And so like my life has been intertwined with biking since I was a toddler, pretty much.
Oh, so you were a latchkey kid.
I mean, yeah, I was born in I grew up in the 80s, let's say, and the early 90s. And I wasn't, I didn't feel neglected by any means, but we just had more freedom back then than I think a lot of kids do now. Part of that is community design, right? Like, and that working at DCA. Part of it is that I lived in a neighborhood where there were houses fairly close together, and there were a lot of kids nearby, and the traffic speeds were lower. The way development has been going now, you may see subdivision after subdivision after subdivision along a major state highway with a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. So there's 12 cul-de-sacs in a row, but those kids can't get to each other's houses unless they, cut through somebody's yard or something like that. And as a planner, that's a big part of what I'm interested in, is how communities exist and are developed and are planned. I wrote my thesis for grad school on how Portland, Oregon, and Amsterdam, Netherlands plan for sustainability through transportation. And it really, back then for me, it was about the sustainability on a bigger picture. Now it's more about how can we incorporate all of that stuff, sustainability and safety and public health, obesity rates and asthma and things like that. How can we incorporate all of that behind good communities, right? Just good places take care of all that stuff inherently.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand the difficulties behind, trying to get from one cul-de-sac to the next on a highway where, odds are these kids probably aren't wearing a helmet because a lot of those kids when you're riding, they aren't just wearing one. And by the way, a traumatic brain injury, a helmet doesn't prevent one of those. Helmets only prevent you cracking your skull open. You still
Right.
can get a traumatic brain injury because I did have a helmet on and it cracked straight through. So
Yeah, it's terrifying. I was on a ride here in Athens as part of our local advocacy organization, Bike Athens, about 15 years ago. We had just set out from downtown Athens and we were going west on Prince Avenue into the sunset. And we couldn't see all that well because the sun shines straight down the corridor. Well, a car that had been going in our direction was making a turn and cut straight across a person on a bike, and it sounded like two cars hit each other. I mean, it was that loud, it was that scary. A couple of us waited for a safe break in traffic, flew over there across the road, and the young man wasn't wearing a helmet, and he was on the ground and going through a lot. And I won't get into the details. He the doctors put him into a coma for I don't know how long, and he recovered. You know, he's not. I don't think he's ever going to be the same again from where he was, but he survived, and we didn't think he would. You know, on the scene. That made me, it got me to the point where, and you're right, you know, a helmet's not going to prevent the brain injury. It got me to the point where every now and then, previous to that, I would ride down the street to my friend's house or somewhere without a helmet on if it was a block or two. I won't get on a bike without a helmet anymore. I just won't do it. I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me. I will never. I mean, I always wear the. My dad says called it the brain box, and I told him I'll never not have a brain box on. You know, when I
Yep.
leave the house. So there's
Yeah.
always one. If I forgot one, then I don't ride that day. I have to go back home. You know.
Yep. I was one of those kids in the, you know, when did helmets come out like really widespread in like the late 80s, early 90s, I guess, for us anyway. I was one of those kids that kind of got excited about it because it was just another piece of gear to have, you know. Got the helmet that matched my bike and everything, and I felt good about wearing it. I see, you know, I see kids with their parents in my neighborhood now not wearing helmets. Obviously, you know, state law says children have to wear helmets. It's hard for me as somebody in my position, but also as their neighbor, you know, not to go up to them and say like, I know you're just on the sidewalk, or I know you're just riding around the neighborhood, but you really ought to put a helmet on. You know, you really ought to practice safer cycling and take care of yourself better.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody looks cool in a helmet. Nobody does.
No, no. Well, you know, it helps when you're like me and you don't have a lot up top to mess up. Right. So like I can put a helmet on and not worry about messing up my hair. And that helped me as a bike commuter for sure. But I've heard a lot of people say like, yeah, I don't want to bike
Oh,
commute, right? I know, yeah,
dude,
you don't have to rub it
I've
in.
got like a thick muscle there.
You don't have to rub it in. But yeah, I mean, people have definitely told me like I'm not going to bike commute because what do? Like I'm not going to not wear a helmet when I ride my bike, so I'm going to put a helmet on, and my hair is going to be a mess, and I get to work, and I'm going to look like, you know, an idiot. Well, okay, that's your choice.
Hey man, you know, it is what it is, but I just will not, you know, I won't not go without one.
Yep, yep, same here, same here. My kid is 12 now, and she has just been conditioned, you know, to where like she points it out now if she sees people without a helmet on. She wouldn't dream of getting on a bike without a helmet, not because she thinks she might get in trouble, you know, but because she knows how important it is.
Hmm. So man, let me get you out of here on this one. What are your short-term and long-term goals for Georgia Bikes?
Oh, what a great question. In the short term, I've got three big priorities that I want to kind of like inject into everything that Georgia Bikes does. The first is, and this is the big one for me, I want to create a platform for Georgia Bikes internally to be successful. So it's going to sound really boring, but I want our practices to be more professional, more advanced, more solid to allow us that platform in the future to rely on, you know, just a solid foundation. So that's things like our IT, our technology, right? Needs to just be bulletproof and support us from behind the scenes. Our SOPs, we need to have SOPs in place for staff and for how we handle public relations and things like that. It's really fun stuff to talk about, so I won't bore you any further with that. But that's number one, is internal practices need to provide a foundation for us. Number two is that, and I mentioned this before, I want us to serve all kinds of different people who ride all kinds of different bikes and walk for all kinds of different reasons in Georgia. I think I've always done that. There's no doubt that we're here for everybody, but I think there's an impression that, you know, Georgia Bikes exists for roadies or Georgia Bikes exists for commuters. Well, we do, but we also exist for mountain bikers and gravel riders and kids and everybody else who finds themselves on a bike in Georgia. And specifically in there, I want to get those like regular people who haven't ridden a bike in years and got one last week. I want to get the people who don't own a square inch of Lycra in their closet or in their drawer. I want all those people who just ride a bike in Georgia to feel like Georgia Bikes represents them and not some exclusive group of people who ride, you know, 500 miles a week. And then the third big thing in the short term that I want to do is standardize that everything Georgia Bikes does falls back or is related to equity, to make sure that we're supporting all of our communities in the state and that we take social justice seriously. And again, that's always been something that Georgia Bikes has done, and I want to streamline and standardize that. In the long term, we're not going to be Georgia Bikes forever. We're going to need to have a name change and an identity planning process that aligns our name and our branding with the vision for bikes and walking and people with disabilities and livable communities and safety and all kinds of things like that, sustainability. So we've got a strategic planning process that we're looking at probably starting in the next 6 months or so, and then that will immediately be followed by an identity planning process. So who are we? How do we present ourselves to the public as a new name that is more comprehensive and encompassing than Georgia Bikes? Those are the big things in the kind of longer term that I'm really focusing on. My goal, Eric, is to, and I'm saying this kind of tongue in cheek, my goal is to work myself out of a job. I want to get to the point where Georgia Bikes has done all of those things to make Georgia such a bike friendly and walk friendly place that they don't need us anymore for advocacy. And maybe they need us for safety education and policy recommendations and things like that. So when I say I want to work myself out of a job, I think I'm just really saying that I want my job to change because we've done so much to make Georgia, you know, just accept right off the bat that biking and walking and access for people with disabilities are just part of our regular lives and our transportation landscape.
I think there's a term for that. It's more of it applies to technology, but we'll call it planned obsolescence.
Yes, I'm hoping to achieve my own obsolescence, or at least in this advocate role, and you know, flow us in the future into more resource-based work.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, man, thanks for joining me. And I was definitely serious about the volunteering thing because, you know, being disabled and no longer having a career is, you've got a lot of free time on your hand, man.
Okay, Eric, I so appreciate your invitation to talk today. It's been a great conversation. And let's be in touch about volunteer opportunities because my list gets longer every day and fewer things get checked off it than you would imagine.
Well, maybe I can help with that.
All right.
Well, take it easy, John.
Thanks so much, Eric, and good luck in all your training and efforts with your blog and everything.
Thank you. Bye, John.
All right. Thanks. Have a great one.